It has become the hottest topic in politics right now. Reports that White House officials covered up President Biden's failing mental health.
Well, now a new book sheds light on what happened, and the fallout could lead to congressional investigations with serious political implications. CBN's chief political analyst David Brody has the story.
The book Original Sin by journalists Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson has shaken official Washington with its in-depth look at efforts by White House and Democrat officials to cover up Joe Biden's obvious mental decline. The authors provide numerous examples, including a town hall staged by the 2024 campaign that went south.
Joe Biden's town hall, which was closed to press, was so bad that campaign officials determined that it was not usable for campaign commercials.
And yet the president's top strategist and family members, known in the book as the Politburo, looked the other way and dismissed it. Chris Whipple, author of the bestseller Uncharted, documenting the 2024 campaign, has similar stories from White House sources. Whipple recounts one story of Biden preparing at Camp David before the infamous debate disaster against Donald Trump.
He wandered out at one point to the pool and sank into a lounge chair and fell sound asleep. And yet, the Biden camp kept sailing toward that iceberg. The debate.
Whipple isn't convinced this amounts to a full-fledged Watergate-style cover-up. He thinks it's more about Biden's top aides becoming more delusional and convinced that Biden was the only Democrat who could beat Trump.
And the stunning thing to me is that nobody ever sat Joe Biden down and said, Mr. President, you sure about this?
Perhaps not so stunning is how much of the legacy media covered it up too. One of Original Sin's authors, Jake Tapper, has been called out during his book tour for looking the other way during the campaign and now cashing in by writing a book about it.
There was no effort, none, to get to the bottom of this. And now for you guys to write this book like there was a cover-up, it's like there was a cover-up and there was an attempted cover-up. It could only ever work if you allowed it, if the press allowed it.
This has also led to questions about Biden's recent prostate cancer diagnosis, with skeptics wondering how something deemed so serious went undetected, especially for a president of the United States.
Why didn't the American people have a better sense of his health picture? Why didn't the American people have more accurate information about what he was actually dealing with? This is serious stuff.
Beyond scrutiny over physical and mental health issues, Congress now wants to investigate who else may have been making executive decisions while Biden sat in the Oval Office. There are reports that Biden extensively used what is known as the Autopen to sign legislation rather than his personal signature. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer wants answers.
We're going to bring everyone that we believe was involved in any role in the use of the Autopen. We're going to invite them to come in for a transcribed interview. If they want, then they will receive a subpoena and they will have a full-blown deposition.
All right, David Brody is with us now. David, these congressional investigations, do you think they'll really lead to anything fruitful here?
I think they actually will, and it involves that Autopen issue. Look, and I think ultimately that Autopen issue is probably going to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, first of all, there's not even a case right now, a legal case around at this point. But this has been controversial for many, many years about whether or not the Autopen is actually constitutional. Legal scholars disagree about this. So I think these congressional investigations could lead ultimately to someone pursuing a legal case that could end up at the U.S. Supreme Court. Look, I mean, the Autopen is controversial because in Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution, it says the president, shall sign the document. Does that mean a wet signature? In other words, an actual signature? Or an Autopen signature? Well, look, Barack Obama's used the Autopen. There have been other presidents that have used the Autopen. George W. Bush did not use the Autopen, saying he thought it was unconstitutional. This has never been tested in a court of law, so we now wait and see. The difference here, though, is with Joe Biden being mentally incapacitated, that raises a whole other slew of questions about who was actually taking charge of the Autopen, and it was done in batch signatures, apparently, as it relates to clemency and pardons. I think that's where this could lead.
All right, what about the impact on the media? They covered it up. And then Jake Tapper, are you surprised? Do you think he's surprised, really, that he's taken such a beating for this book, releasing this now? What's the impact on the media fallout?
I don't think he's surprised. I mean, he knew the pushback and the criticism was coming. And, you know, I think he's 56 years old, but after this book tour, he looks about 156 because it has been rough. He in essence says that the media didn't do their due diligence, and he says he's humbled by that, but doesn't believe there was a cover-up. Look, I've read the book, Andrew, and I've seen all of the examples in the book. And as you go down example by example, everything that they, quote, uncovered after the fact, it makes you wonder, why was none of this uncovered beforehand? Jake Tapper and others say, well, look, White House officials were covering up. They were lying. Well, this just in Washington, lying is like second nature. All politicians, all White Houses lie. You got to get to the truth. And that's where the cover-up comes into play, because they look the other way.
It was mentioned in your report. Do you truly think nobody sat down with President Biden and said, look, this is not a good idea, don't run again? I mean, not even his wife? Nobody?
Yes. Nobody. And the reason I know that is beyond just the original Sin book. I actually talked to the author, Chris Whipple, who's in that piece, who said that to me on camera. And then he explains ad nauseum, if you will, all of the political scandal behind all of this. He says he doesn't really call it a cover-up. He says the real travesty in all this is that nobody went to Biden and said, what are you doing here? And the reason is because they felt that Biden was still their best shot to beat Trump. And so they decided just not to say anything and cover it up.
Does it really hurt the Democratic Party in 6 months, a year? Is it a story anymore? Does it really hurt them overall?
Well, absolutely, because it's a brand issue. You know, people are searching for the truth. We know the truth is in Jesus. That's the #1 truth out there. But in terms of the politics of it, people are frustrated because they're not getting the truth. And you have a Democrat Party, it's calling men women and women men. And I can go down the list of lies that Democrats have told, and they're trying to spin it as truth. That's the problem. And that this narrative about more cover-up, more lies from a Biden administration plays to that anti-brand, if you will, which is what the Democrats do not need at this point.
All right, David, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
You bet.